Welcome back, guys. We're here for Jaws 2.0.
Hypnotized. What's up is down, what's left is right. Chasing stars and holding you. I can't see the end, but we'll see it through.
Hi, welcome back to Jaws. We're so happy that you guys are back with us for our third week. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Ashley Wahler and at Jason Wahler. I almost forgot my tag.
Bless you.
So I guess we need to follow up with what happened last week. And
Yeah, how'd you were going to let everybody know how your session went with our therapist and check in just around how you were doing around your insecurities, just your hormonal stuff that you're dealing with. How'd it go?
Stuff.
Yeah, friends.
Okay, so it was really good, and I told you guys that I bring back some tools because I feel like that's really important. And one of the things that she had suggested to me was really shifting my narrative of the way that I spoke about this pregnancy. So instead of saying, I hate being pregnant or I dislike being pregnant, like I actually wrote notes. She said to start saying like, this is hard, this is different, it's a different pregnancy, instead of saying that I don't like being pregnant, because I think that it can just put like a lot of, I feel like sometimes your words can put a lot of negativity into your mind, and instead of feeling like I hate this or I don't like this, it's like, okay, that's fine, but just switch the narrative and say like, this is a different pregnancy, this is a harder pregnancy, and that should help a lot with like just kind of changing my mindset about things.
When she shared that with you, how did that make you feel?
No, I think it was just like a good tool for me because...
Well, did it create like relief, or did it create like a clear moment of clarity, or?
I don't know. I think it was just good to refocus instead of it being just like a woe is me, victim, hate this, blah, blah, blah. Like, I think it's very true. I think sometimes you just need somebody to like course correct you vocally at times. So I think that was really helpful. And then I had spoken to her about like the friend situation, how I was just feeling a little bit like sad about not being able to relate, obviously love you and care about you, but just the pregnancy aspect and being able to relate to other women. And she was suggesting like, I want you to make a better effort of like hanging out with like Carissa more, like specific friends that she was like these, like she actually had me sit down and talk about like different friends and say like, what does this person do for you in your life? Like, how do they make you feel? Why do you want to spend time with this person? And it helped me to realize like, okay, this person is like the person that I really need to dedicate more time to because they make me feel really good and they help like bring out the best in me. And so she was just suggesting like taking more time to develop relationships with people that really bring a lot of joy into my life, especially during this time in my life.
Yeah.
So I think that was really helpful too, and really making sure that like...
Did she say ways that I could be supportive?
No, because you are so supportive.
I know, but I was just curious if there's things that she brought up that on the other end that I could be doing to just help with the stuff that you're going through.
No, I think that I really didn't even ask her, to be honest, about things that you could do more, because I do feel like you're so supportive and you're such a good husband when it comes to me being pregnant and always asking me like, what can I do for you? Which is such a different narrative than years ago. I feel like you're always asking me like, what can I do for you? How can I support you? Which is so sweet. I love that. So that's really helpful.
Yeah, good.
And then so that was kind of like the follow-up with my therapist.
And I want to share something on that happened with me, and I don't even for me, it was the first time hearing just the feedback from the therapist as things have been crazy, and then I don't even think I've really had the opportunity to share this side of it with you, and just from my perspective, why she's going through everything. And yeah, I'm supportive. I want to be helpful. I want to be there and encourage, but also, it was weighing on me, when you have somebody that you care about that is struggling, go through things, it's challenging, and I always, reflect on like you're a product of your environment, and, just having Ashley go through these emotional roller coasters, which, I'm aware that she's pregnant, she's going through all these things, and I'm sympathetic to that, but it still doesn't mean that it's not challenging, dealing with work, dealing with the kids, dealing just with the holidays that are going, that are coming up, and there's just so much stuff that's going on that it was really becoming debilitating to me, where I'm just like, God, this is just very overwhelming. I just feel like I'm kind of at a place where it's like, there's nothing that I can do, and it's hard just being around just the constant ups and downs. And so what I did is I got open and vulnerable with a couple guys and just expressed what I was going through, and a couple of them actually are in very similar situations and similar circumstances, with their wives actually being pregnant, and I was on the phone with him. He was just explaining to me, hey, maybe take a different perspective at this, and it's something that just hit me right between the eyes when we were talking about all this, because I was looking for sympathy and I was looking for encouragement in these things. But in any situation, whatever it is, there's always an opportunity to create action. And he literally kind of just paused after I was explaining everything to him, and he goes, "Hey man, have you ever just sat and just prayed with her?" And I was like, "Wait, what?" And if I were to give you like a scale of 1 to 10 of the just the overwhelm and just anxiety that's been going on, I would say it was probably like an 8 or a 9. It was pretty high. And then right after he said like, "Hey, you should just pray with her," it went from like an 8 or a 9 to like literally a 1, because it was like, "Oh my gosh, there's solution." And then you wouldn't believe this, but literally as I was hanging up with him on the phone, you called. And I don't know if you realize or you remember that we prayed on the phone.
Yeah.
Literally right after. I was like, what a God shot about just like taking that opportunity, and God presenting me with an opportunity to act on what was the wisdom that was provided to me. And a lot of that has really subsided and gone away. And I've tried to be, this was only a few days ago, and every day I've tried to be intentional about praying with you.
So true.
And that's an action that, one, is not only did that help mitigate my frustration and my struggle, and it was allowing me the opportunity to turn it over, but what was really incredible beyond that is it allows us to create conversation and connectivity, which mitigates the friction between us, because I think it's a way of showing support. And it was really helpful. So I wanted to share that. It was a really cool story. I didn't even share that with you yet, just kind of how that came to fruition. But again, I think that's the power of being able to communicate and connect with people. And just by being open and vulnerable, it allows you to be in a place to receive direction.
I didn't know that. That's amazing.
It was really, really good. And really, because I'm not going to, you're already going through a hard time. I'm not going to be over here and be like, "Dude, what you're doing is crazy, creating all this chaos
feel like it is.
in my life." And it's I need to be able to be, and that's, again, that's what a program and that's what recovery and different things have taught me, is just how to navigate these roads. But I think that's also just and it's also been awesome starting Al-Anon and getting into a program for myself to really understand where I can be supportive and what it is I can do to support, but also where I need to stay out of the way.
I love that, baby. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's so great.
Yeah.
Let's talk about you now too, because you were meeting with people with all of your Al-Anon stuff, and you were talking about boundaries with work, and how is that going this past week?
Well, as we sat here right before we started, you were just like, you seem overwhelmed, and out of honesty, is like I am overwhelmed, because I'm literally in the middle of shifting all of this stuff right now, and creating boundaries, and it feels really good. I'm really excited to go through this, but there's a lot of moving parts to create this freedom that I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And it's hard, right? I've been ingrained in the ways that I've been for 35 years, and it's kind of like starting at square one, just like it was with recovery, of kind of taking a new shift. It's very exciting, because I'm really looking forward to having the clarity and the freedom that I've been wanting for so long. But it's also an overwhelming process. But what I'm doing right now, like in the motion of it, is I actually just had Bible study this morning and was able to open up and talk to the guys and just get encouragement through what I'm doing, because again, there is light at the end of the tunnel with this. And again, just to reiterate, is just there's been so much that's coming at me, and on my end, I really want to kind of create that separation from that. I don't want to be as accessible as I've been, and because really at the end of the day, what's the most important to me is my relationship with God, my sobriety, and my family. And again, is a lot of the things that are important to me, whether it's work, whether it's resources, whether it's income, what other things, they're still important, but they are not the top of my priority, or trumping everything that is really important to me. So if I don't take the time and be very intentional around making this shift, it's never going to change. Yeah. And so that's where I'm at is just because there's an opportunity for growth and
Growing pains.
it's literally growing pains. So it's everything is good. It is overwhelming to kind of go through this. There's a lot of changes that are happening in my life right now. But I'm really excited that I'm starting the process, and I'll keep you guys posted on that, because I think for anybody that feels overwhelmed or that struggles with people pleasing, that's one of the things that I've really struggled with, and seeking validation in the wrong areas. It's important to make those shifts, because ultimately you're just going to keep digging that hole unless you make the shift.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, I think this is good. I'm so glad that we had some takeaways from last week. I'm feeling honestly like much better spiritually, emotionally, and physically than I was last week, and just a little bit more at peace. And I think with that, this episode today is going to be about Jason turning 5, which is like the most commendable thing ever, because I don't think you ever hit 5. I don't even remember if you've ever hit 5, to be honest, but it feels very different and it feels amazing. Yeah. And so in a couple days, Jason's going to be 5 years sobriety. And this has been like the most incredible, I feel like, 5 years of our marriage, of our relationship, of our lives. So I guess we can just kind of talk about like what these last 5 years have brought, and really what got us to that point of like, how did you decide to choose sobriety? Like, what are the things that we did to put in place, or like, what were my boundaries that I did in order to like really, I mean, it's not like I can change you, but I do feel like there was like a shift in life that happened, and there were boundaries that were put in place, and like all of a sudden it was like, this is it, I'm choosing recovery.
Just reflecting on these last 5 years, it is truly an answer to prayer, and it's incredible to see where we are literally today, just sitting here and discussing this, and the fact that we made it to 5 years is incredible. And there were some really trying times, and it was very hard, not even just this last 5 years, just this whole recovery journey has been crazy. Just all the way back to when I was from the first drinks and drugs in the early teens, to dealing with what I dealt with as an adolescent with OCD, insecurities, depression. I mean, this has been a journey of 20 plus years of discovery and development, and it wasn't easy. It was really, really challenging looking back, and there's been a lot of fun times, and there's been a lot of great things that have come through a lot of this. But when I really take a deep look at just self-discovery and development and growth, which I'll be doing the rest of my life. I'm not saying that it's over by any means now, but I mean, gosh, dude, it was a lot to get to where I am today. Just being able to feel comfortable in my own skin, and be comfortable and confident with who I am, and being able to look in the mirror and be able to be like, hey man, like, you're a good person. There were so many years that was not the case. And I think, I obviously had, years of sobriety, and had a taste of what it was like when I originally got sober, July 23rd, 2010. And life was good. And so I was able to kind of have that and experience that. But obviously I went back out and went through the ringer. Again, there was, and I really fault that on, again, everything that I did to get to where I was at from sobriety, I stopped doing, and also had to do a little bit more discovery with, the other addictions that came into play, and codependency, gambling addictions, different things that arise. And I had to continue to learn the hard way, which I don't recommend. But for me, this journey has been incredible. And I just look at, like, there wasn't, like, I think the turning point for this was obviously a major set for this last 5 years versus the original time that I had sober before, was you being able to develop a program and being able to set boundaries ultimately really helped me. Again, as you don't have the power to change me, I don't have the power to change you, but we have the power to influence change. And by you taking care of yourself, it was what helped me. And ultimately I look at, like, there was, I'm a very family oriented person, came from a very family oriented family. That really prioritized that time together, and we started a family. And I mean, looking at my kids and stuff, it was, I was at a place where I don't know how many more shots I had, and I don't say that like, oh, hey, look at me. It's more of like, I mean, I literally the amount that I was using, it was just more of like, I just thought my body was going to shut down. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's interesting because a lot of times you talk to people about, people always say, like in the recovery world, you have to hit your bottom before you get sober. And you always say, like, I don't believe in that because your bottom is death. Like the bottom is like you're buried, you're dead. And I really do feel like that's so true, and why it's so important to have people that are surrounded by you to be working a program in order to create those boundaries. Because you're not saying to the addict, like, I hate you and I don't want you to do this. You're saying, I hate the disease and I'm not letting this disease take over your body anymore. So you really have to like take out the person from it, put the disease as the enemy, and then figure out a plan based on like the disease, not based on the person or the human or their who they were. It's like, no, like we are not going to let this disease take over this person anymore. And like, we have to do everything that we can to eradicate the disease. Doesn't mean that we can cure it or change it, but I do feel like we had that moment when I was going to go to California, to Northern California. And it was that pivotal moment when I finally had that awakening where it was like, we are not doing this anymore. Like we were going to Northern California. I had lost my dad. We were renting this house in Northern California, and I ended up not renting the house. I was really upset. And Delilah and I were going to go to Northern California and stay at my aunt's, and I told you couldn't go. And I think that was like, okay, she says I'm not gonna be able to go. But then I really was like, you're not allowed to come. And I really feel like, and maybe it has nothing to do with me. Maybe it was just like a moment of clarity that you were like, okay, I'm gonna read the big book and like get into the work. And you and Richie like went through all the steps, and it was like a very clear moment. And it was that December 17th that you like decided to really be in recovery. Because I know even after you had gone to rehab, like you were sober, but I don't feel like you were in recovery. Does that make sense? Yeah. And maybe you were in your own mind, but for me, I still felt like the notions of like the dry drunkenness were there. And so even if you had that slip, like you weren't like really sober until you hit that December 17th. And you were like, it's like you had turned your life over to God. Like I swear to you, there was a spiritual awakening that had come over your body, and you had made a shift in your life that was going to change you forever. And I really felt that, like, and I feel like I'm going to cry talking about it, because I know that like, and maybe that was my moment too, where I had put that boundary up, and it was like an awakening where it was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose my child and my wife and everything that I've ever wanted because of this disease. And I just knew that the disease I couldn't handle it anymore. And I do feel like it was just like this amazing moment when you had finally like turned your life over to getting sober and really like listening to guidance and direction, and it was amazing. And now here we are, you know. And do you want to touch on that?
I was just gonna, I think just reflecting back, I think there was multiple things that played a factor into it, with you setting boundaries, with you working a program, with me being in a place that's like mentally, emotionally, it's like, dude, you can't do this anymore. I think there was a place of acceptance, and a willingness to be open and honest. I think again, that was like the turning point. And that's like, even when I achieved original sobriety, it was like just the fact of being willing to be open and honest. And I think that was a part of like just starting to shed that with another person. And then, you know, just getting more open and vulnerable around that. I think there's a lot that played into it. And I think to your point, it's just important to touch on the landscape's different, you know, than it was 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago. I mean, now, what I mean by that is, you know, people, you know, when you used to hear people, they need to hit their bottom and stuff, it was, you know, there wasn't nearly as many people dying and overdosing like there is today. And so, yeah, my perception has changed on that is, hey, how do we help them stop digging? And again, that's not at the sacrifice and of your own well-being by doing that, but it's how can you be encouraging and supporting, and like you said, is look at it from the disease perspective. There's no such thing as recreational use of heroin. There's no such thing as recreational use of meth or drinking a bottle of vodka, and just understand that person's really struggling and is miserable. But tying this back in, there was a combination, and I definitely believe that God had a big piece in this as well. And I think it was the timing of all of it, but it wasn't like, and it wasn't for me like, okay, this is going to be the day. I think it was more of like getting back into just the simplicity of like just one day at a time right now. Like I couldn't look at like, everything that was going on. And it was like I started to accumulate time, and I started to get back into the motions that I did. And it wasn't like an overnight thing, because it was hard just to see through the fog. I mean, there was definitely instances, major interruptions and interventions that happened in life to create that change. But you know, looking at it, it was the consistency of the work that got me to where we are now. And it's, again, kind of tying that full circle and bringing it full circle is like, even with what I'm doing now with the codependency, people pleasing program that I'm working now, it's like I'm seeing that, like, this isn't just, it's the same perspective. It's like I'm in acceptance of this. What's been going on has not been working. It's unmanageable. I've reached out for guidance and direction and help with this, and I want to be in a different place because I want to continue to grow and better my life. And so I'm looking at it like it's interesting looking at how I went through the sobriety stages versus this component of where I'm at in my life. And I think that's the thing for everybody, is it doesn't happen overnight. You know what I mean? It's the consistency you put into it. And if you go to the gym once a week, you're going to get the results of going once a week. You go to the gym 5 days a week, you're going to get the results of going 5 days a week.
Yep.
And so that's the same thing in the efforts of what you're doing and putting into your life. And so that's really what I'm experiencing in this. And I mean, it's this last 5 years has been incredible. But I also want to say, it's not just because I have been working a program, just because I have a relationship with God, because I'm a present father, because I feel like I'm a good husband, I feel like I'm a good friend, I feel like I'm accountable. It's still, life happens, and it's important to understand that trials and tribulations come. And it's now I have the tools to be able to address them versus just escaping. And yes, there's a big difference between being actively in recovery versus being abstinence of drugs and alcohol. And again, there's times even in this last 5 years where it's like, was I fully engaged in my recovery, or was I having tendencies of a dry drunk? And but again, is having the awareness now to be able to course correct that, so I do not let those dominoes continue to fall where it's too many have happened and now I'm back to drinking or using. And so it's a daily thing. It's not like, I don't think today that I'm sitting here like, yes, I have the intention of not wanting to drink or use again, but I'm not going to say that I have the power over drugs and alcohol, because it's an action-oriented thing. If I do not do what I need to do, I will be back in that place. Yeah. And so I think it's important for people to understand, at least for me and for my journey, and for, I think I can speak for your journey, is it's the steps that you're putting into it. And it's important to participate every single day in your program. And by that, I've gotten this 5 years, and I've gotten this, we're in a position to expand our family and to get deeper and connected with one another, and to be able to make a decision to move across the country and to build our family even further with another child on the way. And, it's been absolutely incredible. And literally one of the greatest gifts of my life was having alcoholism and addiction, because the biggest gift that has provided me, besides everything that I've already talked about, is the opportunity to get to know myself. And I haven't known myself for years. There was a long time where I really lost sight of who I was. And that's, I think, the biggest difference now is I'm still learning. I'm still growing. But I really am starting to be so in tune with who I am. And so that's the thing, is I think everybody out there struggles with something. And if you can bring awareness to it, whether it's work, whether it's exercise, whether it's drugs, whether it's sex, whether it's gambling, it's like, hey, what is the reason that you are overly engaging this? And if it's something that's causing a problem in your life, really ask yourself the question is, hey, is this really adding or subtracting to my life and where I'm wanting to go, and reevaluate and look at it. And so that's what this has done for me.
I got really emotional when you started talking about that. I just think that that's like literally incredible that you are so, and I say this, but like, I just, like, the transformation over the last 5 years has been amazing. And I say this a lot because it's like, I had the ability, like, I felt like I was always wearing a cape, like having to take care of everything. And like, I've got to take off my cape and be like, oh my God, I don't have to do this all alone. Like, you can have the cape. You're Superman now. I don't have to be Superwoman. And like, the fact that you can literally say, like, my greatest thing that ever happened to me was my addiction, because it helped me become the person that I am and focus on like who I am and look at myself. Like, that is amazing. Like, that is God's gift, that you can sit here and say like your greatest deficits are your assets. And like, that is Like, wow.
Oh, and I want to just take a moment to, I mean, obviously you're a huge part of all of that, and I'm just grateful that you stuck by me through this, because I remember in the early stages of going through this again, there was multiple times where, I was just like, why would you, like, I remember even being in addiction and being like, why are you staying with me? You know what I mean? Like, why are you here? Like, like, and even when I started to get sober, like, I was like, I mean, I was looking at it, and there's so many times where I'm like, God, I would have left, if the tables were turned. And I'm just so appreciative and grateful that you stuck by my side. I mean, I don't think I would be here. I mean, I definitely think that you gave me this opportunity for another chance. I really, really believe that. But it was just like, it's so weird looking at, like, I mean, just how strong you've been, how courageous you've been through this process, because there's so many times you had outs. And so thank you.
You're welcome. I love you.
I love you too.
I guess
Appreciate you.
my hormone up and downs aren't as bad. Walking through the last 5 years together, my hormonal rage, you will stick through.
Yeah. No, for sure. And again, I think in closing, for you guys, it's like, I mean, especially if you have a loved one that is going through it, don't give up hope. I mean, again, is Ashley does not have the power to get me sober. But again, is the action steps that she took were definitely a big part of the influence for change. And I think you need to remember that. And if you have people out there that are struggling, is love them. Know you're not alone in this process. Get educated. And if you guys have questions or comments just around things that maybe that you're going through, write them below, and we can try to address them. And again, is we're just sharing our suggestions, right? We're not clinicians by any means, but we definitely have a lot of lived experience that we can try to share and point you guys in the right direction.
Should we are we going to do a takeaway?
So my takeaway for this week, and what I want to be talking about next week from a level of accountability is checking in again just around the work I'm doing around boundaries. So I'll be sharing that with you, because obviously there's a lot going on right now, and I'll be able to share what I'm in the middle of right now next week, and hopefully that there's more light at the end of the tunnel.
I love that. And then next week, I'm going to check in with you guys again about the language that I've been using in my own mind when it comes to pregnancy, and seeing if that kind of helps my emotional well-being instead of negatively talking to myself in my head. So I'm definitely going to work on that.
I love it.
I love you.
Okay. See you guys next week.
Thanks for tuning in. Bye.